Right, Mr. Haribhakti, your thoughts on Ramalinga Raju as well as the 9 others accused being found guilty in the case?
Yeah, I'm not completely surprised by this because the largest action against anybody in this country, which has lasted for 5 years, with a thorough investigation, has concluded, and these people who had originally admitted, retracted, have been found guilty. So it does not come as a very big surprise to me. I would like to wait and watch as to what is the level of punishment or sentencing that is done, because that will determine whether we can then finally put this behind us and the country can get on with a more trusting environment, because the signal would have gone out that there is no room for people who actually commit some wrongdoing to keep doing it.
Okay, and Hitesh, would like to get in your thoughts also on the same, and what is the kind of probable punishment that the accused could be subjected to?
Well, this is significant. My first comment is it's a very significant verdict. In a way, a message is given by the system. And when we speak about the rule of law, which is very important, and particularly there was a perception that in commercial matters, the big fish, they always get away with the trial. The trial gets prolonged, the verdict takes longer. So from that point of view, such a complex facts, complicated trial, I think it's the verdict has come in a good time and at a good speed. So that is something which should be which should be noted. I mean, it's a very timely and a speedy verdict. As far as punishment is concerned, now that the court has found them guilty, so they will hear them over the sentences, and I think the court will award a punishment which will be deterrent and which will deter other people to commit such crimes of similar nature. So all these factors will be taken into the account by the court while deciding the sentence. But particularly one thing, since it's a large corporate commercial fraud, and looking at the complexity and the way the documents and all the charges that were put about fudging of papers and everything, so you are going to see a sentence which is going to be a deterrent, and which will act as a deterrent, and it will basically serve as an example to others who want to indulge into such kind of practices.
Mr. Haribhakti, you've given us your initial reaction. My point is, this doesn't come as a surprise, does it? Because 10 years ago, a lot of people would have thought that things like this would even out and maybe sentences won't be so harsh. This wouldn't come as a surprise, right?
Not at all. I think we have traveled a big distance over the last few years. I think the system has become intolerant and far more transparent. There has been such a large amount of exposure to the debate on this issue. Laws have been changed, regulations have been tightened. Virtually everything in the company law, for example, or in the regulatory tightness of SEBI has happened as a reaction or a fallout of what happened in Satyam. And so I think the system has already taken a huge amount of action, and therefore now what was the only last task left was to figure out whether there was actual guilt, and if so, what the punishment should be.
So all the accused found guilty as well, and while there could be further recourses as the case may be, and I would want your comment on that as well, but and while we are still awaiting the quantum of the sentence as well, would you be surprised if the sentence is the strictest of the sentences that anybody was anticipating till now?
Well, in fact, this is a purely, I would trust the judgment of the judge. I don't think any of us should speculate or even prejudge the matter. It's not too long that we have to wait to hear about what the punishment will be, and I think we should react only after that. I do not wish to speculate on whether it will be at the top end or at the bottom end of what is the range of punishments.
Mr. Haribhakti, what does this do to some of the other cases of similar nature as well? I mean, my question is that when the scam broke out, it was a landmark of sorts because it made a lot of people sit up and say that, hey, this is something that was completely unexpected from a corporate of this magnitude and from a corporate executive of this nature as well. Do you think it could well serve as a benchmark for a lot of similar cases which may come up in the future or which may currently be going in as well, even though they are smaller?
I think we should be careful not to extrapolate Satyam onto other cases because the facts of each case may be widely different. Maybe the circumstances, the facts, the way it was done, the relative involvement, the complexity, all of that will be different. So again, it would be actually wrong to try and extrapolate that this will become the benchmark and that all punishments in future should be equal and equally severe. I would say we need to trust that our judicial system will take excellent view of every circumstance and every case distinctly. And that is why we can trust it. And that's the trust that we need to enhance.
Okay, Mr. KTS Tulsi is on the phone line as well. Mr. Tulsi, thanks so much for joining in. I'm guessing this doesn't come as any surprise at all that Ramalinga Raju and the other accused have been found guilty.
Doesn't come as a surprise because he had already made an elaborate confession.
Yeah.
And after that, the investigation went about establishing the averments in that confession from independent evidence. There are about 3,000 documents on which the court has relied. There are 226 witnesses that were examined. And the court has actually found evidence with regard to loss to the tune of 14,000 crore. Whereas when he made the confession in 2009, he had confessed to having cooked up the books to the tune of 7,139 crore. So not everything could be established, but what has been established is significant enough because falsification of accounts has been established, forgery of valuable documents has been established, and tampering with the evidence has been established. In the face of that independent evidence, the confession is only to corroborate the independent evidence. I don't think this, since it is based on documentary evidence, but by and large, and that too electronic evidence, there was challenge to electronic evidence, and it was said that it's not admissible. So some of it may have been found not to be admissible, but the remaining, which was admissible, is damning enough.
I mean, my point was only from the fact that I believe Ramalinga Raju did retract his 2009 confession, the defense saying that he never confessed to any crime, so on and so forth. But aside of that, from a legal perspective, sir, Mr. Tulsi, what does this verdict or this case really imply for other cases of this nature? Would it be preemptive to assume that this may serve as a bit of a landmark judgment as well?
You see, we need to see that this is one of the first major crimes in the electronic age. And all business houses need to understand that the electronic evidence leaves enough footprint for the investigating agencies to be able to dig up the entire evidence, which is of unimpeachable character. So there is no place to hide in the modern age. Just as it has provided us such great supersonic efficiency in the way we function, it also leaves footprint with regard to each action taken by us. So this should be a warning to all the business houses that anyone indulging in forgery runs the serious risk of being able to be found out. Falsification of accounts is no longer an easy job.
No, I take your point. So in terms of the warning that it serves is fair. But what about in legal parlance, the kind of impact that this verdict can have on cases of similar nature? Do you think it can be extrapolated, Mr. Tulsi?
It is a landmark judgment. It is something which will be. You see, increasingly investigating agencies are being able to work out crimes, whether violent crimes or accounting matters, on the basis of electronic evidence.
Sure.
And electronic evidence, just as it is a great facility, is also a big trap.
Of course, of course. Mr. Haribhakti, just one more thing. Maybe not legally, but in terms of conversations that happen with clients. I mean, Mr. KTS Tulsi kind of, while I asked him about the legal opinion, did refer to the point about how this could serve as a warning to corporate India as well, or certain people who want to indulge in practices of this sort. You think that would happen because you would be speaking firsthand with a bunch of corporates in the IT sector or otherwise. Do you think this serves as a warning for that as well?
I think I endorse every word of what Mr. Tulsi said. He said that this establishes the validity of electronic evidence, which is absolutely right. He said that it will be a warning, and in my mind, not just to the corporate sector, but to the entire society, that please don't indulge in things that will lead to the outcome that Satyam has now reached. And I think that is going to be fundamentally important in enhancing India's rating as a country which is more open, more safe to do business in. And I think it will change the climate, because people will voluntarily take actions to desist from any of the possible things that can go wrong. And therefore, I think it can have a very positive impact, this judgment. It will certainly be a landmark judgment. It will be studied very carefully, and people will make sure that preventive action is taken to make sure that this does not repeat itself.
Mr. Haribhakti, with people that you would be having, would already be suggesting that?
I mean, it's already happened. The last 5 years, the extent of voluntary compliance that I am seeing is really fantastic. I think one has to recognize that we have come a long way over the last 5 years, and as the Companies Act gets more and more well established, and as the regulatory framework improves, and as everything gets electronic, we are sensing that people have understood finally that the cost of doing wrong is far higher than the cost of being compliant, and therefore the compliance orientation has happened.
We do have Mr. Harish Salve as well. And Mr. Salve, sorry, I got you on a slightly patchy line, so couldn't make complete sense of what you were saying. But I would again start off with that.
What I was saying is this is extremely important, what has happened, because it has shown that even if it takes time, we are now mature enough to deal with these kind of complex cases of corporate fraud and investigate them thoroughly and arrive at verdicts. There was some criticism as to why this case has taken so long. And the short answer is we do not have the infrastructure in our court to deal with these kind of cases. You see, a case involving a case involving street violence doesn't have the kind of evidence which you have in the case involving corporate fraud, where tens of thousands of pages are involved, electronic data is involved. And frankly, when people tell me why it is delayed, my answer is I wonder how we managed to get it done with the kind of frugal infrastructure our judges have to work with. Yeah. And so I think this underscores the need now of having courts who are fully equipped with infrastructure, with electronic facilities, assistance, to be able to deal with these cases quickly. And we have to have a dedicated judge who, when he takes his trial, runs its course within 6-8 months, finishes it, and then moves on to another trial.
In that sense, Mr. Salve, I mean, I had an earlier speaker who mentioned that he was very happy with the speed of the judgment as well, even though it's taken X number of years, so to say. Is that a sense that you would have as well?
A complex case like Enron ran from investigation to conviction in 2 years in the US. How? Because see, I work now also for a period of time. I also work in the UK jurisdiction. I have seen the kind of equipment they have. I've seen the kind of facilities they have. Video conferencing, everything is digitized, everything is electronic, everything is available on the click of a button. And the court sits from morning to evening. There's no question of adjournment. Case goes on from day to day. Witnesses are flown in, flown out. Everything is electronically recorded, immediate transcription. So that saves so much time. And you know what happens is, when you are going fast, you finish quickly. Once you start slowing down and then breaks come in and then vacations intervene and in between some other case intervenes, you lose the thread. So you have to then rewind and start all over again.
But Mr. Tulsi, the same question to you then. Harish Salve was saying that under the circumstances that we've had, it's not been a slow case, so to say. It could have been better, but it's not been a bad thing as well. But my question is more so on what's the way ahead with this, and what, without getting into a preemptive game of what the quantum of the sentence could be, would you be surprised if it's the strictest of sentence that is delivered for Ramalinga Raju?
I think it is bound to be harsh because there is a falsification of accounts and tampering with evidence. And if he is found guilty of these offences, tampering with evidence is viewed very seriously. That means after the investigation has begun, you are tampering with evidence to be able to escape punishment and mislead the investigating agencies. And sometimes the documents are tampered with. I don't know at what stages they have been done, but tampering with evidence is trying to pollute the stream of justice, which is viewed very seriously. It's more serious than the principal offense. So this is one, and I think that this case is going to be a harbinger for the developments in the future, and the corporate frauds that take place in electronic age will have to heed this warning, because these frauds are going to become far more dangerous in the electronic age than ever before. And the other thing is that this electronic evidence, and it's a two-edged weapon. Just as it facilitates the fraud, it also facilitates the detection. And this is going to have a huge impact on the Indian industry, and it will be the biggest threat to parallel economy. Parallel economy, which is generated to the tune of maybe 60%.
Right. And which the government has made no bones about wanting to curb in a big way as well. That's an interesting point, Hitesh, that Mr. KTS Tulsi is making as well. But that same question to you. He believes that what's happened in the case and trying to obstruct evidence, so to say. Excuse me if my legal parlance is not at its correct. But do you think that the verdict could be as harsh or probably more than what people have been anticipating till now? The verdict will be delivered tomorrow, by the way.
Well, as I always maintained, that since a message has been sent to the system, and once I expect a harsher verdict, because in matters like this, if you have found the accused guilty, it is also important, it's a principle of the criminal justice system, that there should be some deterrent set which should serve as a warning. I completely agree with Mr. Tulsi when he says that this the verdict over here and the sentence over here will serve as a warning to those people who wants to indulge into such kind of sophisticated crime, because here we are dealing with somebody who is educated, who knows the system very well, and who has used and manipulated the system to commit the fraud. And after the trial, after considering all the material, they have been found guilty. And coupled with the fact that the person has not only tried to commit a fraud, but after that tried to tamper with the evidence, which is far more serious, because you are trying to deviate the system also, and you want to play with the system. So when you look at the totality of the circumstances, I don't see a mitigating factor for a lesser sentence. So assuming all that arguments on age, health, seniority, whatever may be, but if you look at the nature of the crime, and the post conduct also. So all these circumstances clearly shows that there are no mitigating factors which will help the accused to reduce the sentence. So we are looking at tomorrow that the accused will have to face a much harsher sentence when the verdict on the sentence will actually be pronounced tomorrow.
Gentlemen, all of you, really appreciate. It's a landmark verdict, which I'm sure a lot of people will agree to as well. But thanks so much, Mr. Haribhakti, Hitesh, Jain, Mr. KTS Tulsi, for joining in and giving us this perspective. It was really good having you on this very important verdict of India Inc.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.